October's board meeting has been scheduled for Thursday, October 8th, 2020, was sent to the Jersey Journal and Star Ledger on Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, as notification to the general public of said meeting, and sent to the city clerk of Hoboken on Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, with a copy of the agenda to be posted on the bulletin board in City Hall, the Hoboken Public Library, and the Hoboken Police Department. I direct the minutes of this meeting to state that I have announced that adequate notice of this meeting has been given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. In addition, I direct that the minutes of this meeting to state the following. As a result of the restrictions established by Executive Order 107, issued by the Governor of New Jersey with respect to the need to limit public gatherings to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, the meeting will be conducted exclusively through the use of communications equipment. This procedure is in accordance with NJSA 10:4-9.3, which states that a public body shall not be deemed to have violated any provision of the Open Public Meetings Act in conducting a meeting by means of communication or other electronic equipment. In addition, this procedure complies with Article 3, Section 7 of the Authority Bylaws, which allows for participation in authority meetings by members of the Board of Commissioners by means of telephone conference or similar communications equipment. Now, I believe, Mr. Fitzpatrick, you have to add your addendum to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll try to be slow for Phyllis. In keeping with the Housing Authority's normal practice of affording members of the public the opportunity to comment at monthly board meetings, the Authority will be accepting comment during this meeting in one of three ways. First, comments can be sent by email to hha@myhhanj.com from now until 7:30 p.m. Second, beginning at approximately 7:30 p.m., the Authority will allow access to participants one at a time to comment using their telephones. Third, if you're participating in the meeting using a web browser or smart device, you can submit comment using the Q&A function, which can be accessed by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. We ask that any member of the public who wishes to submit comment using the Q&A function try to limit themselves to a single submission rather than submitting multiple brief comments. Any comment received by 7:30 p.m., either by email or through the Zoom Q&A function, will be read aloud by an Authority representative for all attendees of the meeting to hear. Please note that standard practice of the Executive Director and members of the board is to refrain from engaging in a back and forth discussion during the public comment portion of Authority meetings. However, in light of the ongoing crisis, the Authority realizes that it may be necessary to address questions or concerns raised by the public related to COVID-19. On behalf of the Authority, we thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. In addition, Commissioners, it is my understanding that Councilwoman Vanessa Falco and Mr. Mark Villamar, the two community trustees on the Board of Housing for Hoboken, the nonprofit formed by the Authority, excuse me, are with us tonight to participate in the discussion of one of the resolutions before you. At this time, in order to allow more time for the members of the public to submit comment in advance of 7:30 and to accommodate Councilwoman Falco and Mr. Villamar, who have been so gracious with their time, I recommend that the board consider adopting a resolution to reorder the agenda to allow for discussion of resolution number 2020-10.05 and to allow the Executive Director to present his report. However, I recommend that the board wait for a final vote on resolution 2020-10.05 until its current place on the agenda after members of the public have had the opportunity to be heard on the matter. Thank you.
All right, so I make a motion to suspend the order of the agenda to allow for commenting by our two guest members of the nonprofit. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, if we could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman?
Yes.
Ian Pistato?
Yes.
Dean Lewitt?
Yes.
Steve Miller?
Yes.
Steve Seitzman?
Yes.
Bill Smith?
Yes.
Carl Vega?
Yes.
Great. So try to be chivalrous. So we're going to allow the councilwoman and lady to go first.
My recommendation, sorry for interrupting, Mr. Chair, would be to actually introduce the resolution under standard practice and then have the discussion then, but then table it until later on the agenda after the public comment period.
Sounds good. All right, so let's do that. So I have to read the resolution then, right? Which resolution number is it again, so I can find it quickly?
That's 05.
05.
05. Okay. So resolution number 2020-10.05, a resolution to award a contract for professional planning services with respect to the RAD program. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. All right. So we're going to open discussion, and then I guess we're going to, your recommendation was to start with commenting or to start with an introduction of it?
However you'd like to do it. Might be appropriate to start with the introduction of the resolution itself and then open to comment.
Okay, well, I'll speak briefly and then hand it to the director. So I think this is a very important vote, you know, where we're going to pave the way for doing what has been long overdue, and I don't think has been done properly in the past, which is to open ourselves up to replanning our housing authority. You know, and I'm sure there will be, there's many more steps that are going to come before we're going to be able to have new housing stock, and I'm sure there will be differences of opinions about the methods and the tools. But the one thing I'm really encouraged by is that the nonprofit we've set up, everybody seems to be very much of the shared opinion that most of our housing stock should be replaced. And we plan on going about the process of facilitating that and helping that to happen. And our nonprofit has recommended a firm that has exemplary levels of experience. And we went through a very extensive interview process to come to this recommendation. And I look forward to having the vote tonight, and to hopefully the vote will prevail and we will have a long working future with this firm. Now, Director, if you could tee up a little bit of information before we have Councilman Mr. Villamar speak.
Sure, be glad to. Again, just echoing Dave on the incredible amount of effort that went into this by the whole housing.
Like your voice is just a little breaking up.
I'll keep keeping up. I hope I don't keep breaking up. I will just add Dave here and talking about the incredible amount of effort that has gone into making this selection. We had 6 incredibly great firms that came in with proposals to be our planning consultant partner. And the Housing for Hoboken board interviewed all 6 firms and then whittled it down to 3 firms and did a second interview process with 3 firms, sometimes as late as 10 at night to get this work done. I think it was a very professional process, and I want to give my thanks to everyone on that committee and on the Housing for Hoboken trustee board. It was a hard decision, but I think in the end, there was a clear consensus from the group on who we should move forward with. Moving forward in this case, on tonight's resolution, means that you give me the authority to begin negotiating a contract with this firm and come back to you at the next board meeting, hopefully, and we think this is very doable, that we can come back to you at the next board meeting with a contract with a not to exceed amount, with the details of the contract worked out. Of course, should we not be able to do that, we would be back to you with a different recommendation. But what this resolution does tonight is it picks our firm. It allows the Hoboken Housing Authority Board to pick a firm to move ahead with a final contract negotiation with a planning consultant that's going to be working with us on developing a plan for the renovation, rehabilitation, rejuvenation of all of our units. It will be a partner that works with us on community meetings, on making sure that we have a consensus from the community on our plan, making sure that we get input from all parts of the Hoboken community, of course, starting with the residents, over to the city, over to the staff, over to neighborhood and community members. We are going to be going through a community meeting process here and come out the other side with what we hope as the plan to move ahead for our next years and how we're going to deal with all of the properties that we have at the Hoboken Housing Authority. I couldn't be more pleased with the selection, and I look forward to working with them and moving forward. I would like to ask if any of the other board members, either Mark, Vanessa, Aaron, Dave, Erica, would like to comment on our process.
I'll just make a quick comment. You both seem to cover a lot of it. I'd like to think that, good evening, board members. I'm Vanessa Falco, Councilwoman at Large for the City of Hoboken. I would like to think that everyone that is on this panel and on this board has the ultimate goal of improving the lives of the residents that live in the Housing Authority. And I can say that this process is the first step in doing so. We've seen so much transition in Hoboken, so much growth and so much development, and yet this area remains stagnant. And I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do. And again, I'll reiterate, this is just the first step. But it was a process where we looked at different companies and had to decipher through their qualifications and their level of expertise to determine which company we all felt, which group of individuals, because some of them came in as different groups, would be best suitable to Hoboken and to utilize and to facilitate all of our vision collectively. And I look forward to having your support. The group that we've selected, Torty Gallus, they seem well positioned to bring our vision and life to the Housing Authority. They have a level of expertise and experience in developing and financing and taking into account all of the federal and state programs that are required to do a project of this magnitude. And then, as Director Recco mentioned, they will conduct a series of community information sessions, making sure that our community, because one of the challenges we face is that, you know, displacement is the word for this process. Like, that is the major fear, major concern. And so in order for this to be a good project, we have to be secured in knowing that displacement will not happen. And so we are confident in this stage of the process that we've selected the right partners. And yeah, I look forward to your support and working to see this get started.
Very good. Commissioner Lewis, you want to speak? I see your hand up.
And I turned my mute off.
Good job.
A few bits of information. One, Greg Byrne from HUD, who visited the Housing Authority, declared our buildings as being obsolete. And that's an important piece of information for HUD in order to put us into a special program. And when we, you know, what we want to do, I think, is to make the campus, what is now a campus, to make it part of Hoboken and not a separate, you know, like a boundary you're crossing to go into the Housing Authority. So that's one of our goals. Another goal is to increase occupancy. And that would be, we have to replace the units that we take down for the income group that's in there now. But the additional units can be workforce housing, moderate income housing. And, you know, that's what the planners have to figure out. Regarding displacement, my guess is we start with a new building. So nobody has to be relocated into Hoboken or into Jersey City. We'll already have units for people to move into and then to move out of when their buildings are done. So that's a little bit of what we're hoping to happen. And I sure hope we can pull it off. Thanks.
Great. And Mr. Villamar, did you want to comment on the process?
I do. Following up with both Councilwoman Falco and Aaron mentioned, I would add that the Housing Authority is fortunate to have property in one of the most vibrant, successful, developed cities in New Jersey. And to have the ability to add the aforementioned moderate and workforce housing will support the entire campus, or whatever it will be called subsequent to the redevelopment, into something that will always be maintained at the highest level of efficiency and comfort, and not have a situation that we are facing now where there are these buildings that are so-called obsolete. So what we're doing is creating the process for which we can safely say for the foreseeable future, decades from now, people will still look at these new properties with the fact that they're respectable, they're clean, they'll be functioning, and they'll be good homes for people. And I am happy to be part of that group, and I especially pleased with the professionalism that I've been seeing both in the Housing Authority and in the trustees and members of your group. And I hope to see this to its full conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. And then anybody else?
I did leave out one point that I did want to mention, if you don't mind. One of the reasons that almost all of us were attracted to this planner is that not only did they talk about the development aspect, but they really took a holistic approach to the project and the importance of economic development and how it's important to be able to build up the residents and provide them with access to education, access to jobs, access to different mechanisms that will allow them for growth and opportunity within this Hoboken community. So that's a big, big plus, because that's very much needed in our community. So I just want to add that above all of the other planners, they really talked about that more specifically, and I think that that's a great fit for Hoboken and our housing authority.
Great. And then Commissioner Seitzman.
I echo that. I think that's very important, and I was very impressed with that, and hopefully some of our services can combine and we could come with the best outcome and the best abilities to help all of the residents.
Great. Well said, everybody. Yeah, I mean, you know, and I think the director mentioned earlier that it was a difficult decision, but it was really a difficult decision because of the amount of excellence that showed interest in our project, not there not being a lack of excellence. There were many firms that we could have picked that I think would have done a good job, and we picked one that I think will do an above average and excellent job. And also we'll be able to work the intricacies of, you know, the federal government is not the easiest to get adequate income streams out of. So I look forward to it being a refurbishment, a redevelopment that is going to last well beyond all of our lives and be fit, good, solid housing for people for decades and decades to come. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for our guests, not really our guests, because you're members of the all-important Housing for Hoboken board, but thank you for your words.
Can we ask questions while they're here, or do we have to save it for later?
I mean, we could ask questions. I don't know why we couldn't ask them now, right? Especially if it's
by all means, yeah. Now would be the appropriate time.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole intent here, this is Harold Fitzpatrick, is that we would have the full commissioner discussion on this resolution at this point.
Right.
But postpone the actual vote until we give the public, if they have any comments, the opportunity to comment on this resolution. But the full discussion really should happen now while you've still got the two people from the Housing for Hoboken board present.
Understood. All right, so Commissioner Impastato.
So I want to thank everybody that's on this nonprofit board first and foremost, especially Councilwoman Falco and Mr. Villamar for your time and energy in this important task. My question, the priority of my questions are from you know, this was a process that years ago, the Hoboken Housing Authority took on with a Vision 2020. I am curious to know, in talking to all these planners, what is different in the plan or process that we're going through now compared to what Vision 2020 was? And then two, what is, were there any of these planners that came back? Like, I don't know what planner we used for 2020, but was there any work that potentially could be repeated or used from when we paid for those services as it relates to this new endeavor?
Great question.
Well, I'll start addressing that. You know, one difference, stark difference for me, because I'm the only commissioner who was here after the planning went on, but when that plan was being pushed forward, there wasn't a nonprofit established then, and there was now. And I mean, we saw at Fox Hill that made all the difference, because we wouldn't have been able to apply for the funding. It's set up so that if you don't have a nonprofit, you can't possibly tap into all the different funding mechanisms that the federal government has established and set up. That reason alone is a world of difference.
Just to cut you off, if I could, what was the way of funding when it was 2020?
Part of my problem was that was very vague. Very ambiguous.
Can I comment on three parts of Commissioner Impastato's question, and then hand it over to the fellow that's just been thrown the big fat pitch down the middle? Step one, what we did, or what the authority did more than 10 years ago, was to have an overall vision. They never got to the point of hiring a planner who would actually present something to the various parties, the community, the tenants, the city, all of the other interested parties, and then ultimately move forward with that plan. The Vision 2020 was an original scope of where things might go. The second part of it is, as near as anybody's been able to tell, and Emil may be able to comment better on this, it was paid out of General Housing Authority funds.
How much was spent?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never been able to determine that.
I would have to go back through and check on the exact figure. I had just come in towards the end of that process. But I could find out. I know that there are a few firms involved with it, so I can find out, but I don't know.
But none of those firms that they were talking to were on this list.
The major firm, that's the softball. I'm getting to that. The major firm was the Dean Marchetto firm. Now, they did not submit, but there's more of a story, but I'm going to defer in a second to Commissioner Lewitt to tell that story. With them, there were other team members, and one of the team members was a financial consultant who was also a team member with one of the other submitters here. Believe it or not, three of the submitters here in one way or another had previous ties to major Hoboken efforts. But the real key, I think, Commissioner Impastato, to where you're going is, are we going to seek to get the benefit of the Marchetto effort? Mm-hmm. That was not a full plan, but it was a document which Commissioner Lewitt has obtained, and he's going to tell you what we asked all of these people on the second round of interviews. We did over 15 hours of interviews, by the way, with respect to that Vision 2020 plan. You're on, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks. The Dean Marchetto plan is very in-depth. It shows where he grew up. It shows where he's a professional. It shows how he knows his town. And the information was so rich inside his booklet that it would be ridiculous to try and replicate it by somebody coming to Hoboken for 2 days to do research and write a report. So we spoke to the planning candidates about Dean. All of them knew Dean very, very well. They were very complimentary. And they all said, sure, we would like to work with him. So if we can save time, I mean, the 2020 plan is 10 years old. There's some obsolescence in it. A lot of it needs to be updated, but a lot of it is still as good as it gets. So, you know, we would like to use Dean as a consultant, whereas we can save time, and saving time is saving money, and that can be Dean's fee. And I think we'll wind up with a much better report in the end by using his information and the talent of our planner.
So we're gonna hire this planner, and then we're gonna hire Dean as a consultant.
Well, the only part that's been determined.
What?
Mr. Lewitt, are you talking? I couldn't hear you if you were talking. Mr. Lewitt?
No, this is Harold. Let me try to answer the question from a technical standpoint. We asked all of the candidates who were in the second round whether or not they'd be willing to rely upon Marketo's information and work with that in order to move forward, and they all said yes. We are going to hire the firm that's before you tonight. The decision as to what Marketo's further role would be will be determined in the future. But the goal is to get to where Commissioner Impostato's question was.
Off.
Okay, I'm talking about Commissioner Impostato's question. The goal is to get to where his question was going, which is, are we going to try and get the benefit out of what we already paid for? And the answer is very much so. As to what's future role.
Oh, I was just going to say a lot of your audio went out.
I'm sorry.
I think we are recording, so I think we can go back, Phyllis.
If I can help, I think it was recorded. It's part of the recording, but I think, Phyllis, it may have been that we lost you.
Yeah, I think we lost you. We heard him just fine. It'll be on the recording.
Okay.
So the bottom line here is we're going to get the benefit of the previous Marketo information. It's very good. The ultimate plan relied upon programs that existed at HUD 12 to 15 years ago, some of which don't exist anymore. Things change to the point where the approaches have to change.
Yep.
But there are a number of things in there, both the history of the housing authority and potential for how the property would be converted to a grid will be very helpful to the new planner.
Okay. Now we paid for Marketo's services over 10 years ago, right?
Yes, it was over 10 years ago.
So why do we have to go and get the stuff? Well, why is it not? We should have it, right?
Because it's not.
Yeah, well, we did get it. I'm not sure.
What we're going to be doing, the Vision 2020 plan did not get into financing. It didn't get into a lot of things in depth that we need to get into. And, you know, I don't want to sort of relitigate the merits of the 2020 plan. There's obviously a lot of things that were done there in research, especially the background information and the history of the community and the housing authority that will be used. And we asked every planner that we interviewed whether they would utilize that information and possibly even bring Dean on as a consultant so that his work wouldn't have to be replicated. But there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done in this project that was not done by that plan.
So
as to the availability of the material, Commissioner Impastato,
yeah,
it's like so much else from 10 or 15 years ago at the Housing Authority. Yeah. Whether it floated away with Sandy or whatever, Commissioner Lewitt went to the effort of getting this from Marketo, who made up copies and made them available so that we could make reference to them. That's why I hesitated when you asked the question about the payment. Emil and I have stumbled over that for a while, but we don't have all the answers on that. The one thing I'm sure about, having looked at the material now, is that we own it and we can use it for whatever it has of benefit.
Cool.
And if there's additional benefit that we could get out of Marketo, we would consider that in the future as we go along. But one thing is very different here. What we're doing is hiring a planner who's going to work with all the stakeholders. What was done the last time is that whoever put together the Vision 2020 plan decided what was going to be done and then told people.
Mm-hmm.
As Councilwoman Falco said, what we're going to do here is have a much different process to decide what everybody wants, and then based upon that consensus, put together the plan that everybody will go along with.
Got it. Now, when you mention stakeholders, who are you? Obviously, the residents, the board, the nonprofit board. Does that also include the city administration, the mayor's office, developers in town? Is that all included in who the stakeholders of this project are?
Yeah, if I could take that, I mean, it's going to include the community at large. Obviously, the members of our community that are currently living in our housing authority, that's where you start with, because that's the most important vested interest group in this. And then you have the community at large in Hoboken. You have, of course, you have the administration, all the elected officials, because it has to be declared an area in need of redevelopment to make major changes that go beyond simple planning board adjustments. And you need to enter into a designation of an area in need of redevelopment before you proceed anywhere near as far as Vision 2020 envisioned. I mean, it was really an out of order process. And again, I don't want to dwell on it because, we're looking forward. We're not going to be fixated on looking backward, but there were a lot of flaws in that process, a ton.
I have a question. Is there a reason that this contract is not being put out for bid for the planning?
It's not a bid. It's a professional service for a New Jersey licensed professional planner, and it's subject to our procurement policy. It's the way you would procure all other professionals. So it's the functional equivalent of a so-called bid, but it's not a bid based upon price. It's a proposal based upon an evaluation sheet that you're familiar with in other cases. And the evaluations were done by the procurement committee, who are the three members of the housing authority who also participated in this overall process.
And we had hours and hours of meetings and interviews, as I'm sure Mr. Villamar, Commissioner or Councilwoman Falco could attest to. I mean, it went through the whole summer, and and it was great because every firm brought something special to the table, and we're really fortunate that the firm we're recommending is not like the only competent firm. They were all pretty competent. They were all amazingly competent, but I think the firm that we are recommending is just above average and could do really wonderful things here in Hoboken.
Just to bring this kind of full circle, should we be able to approve contract negotiation tonight and then bring back a contract to the board at the November board meeting, we would then be able to have a contract by probably the first of the year, 2021. And what excites me about that process is that going into this coming winter, we will be able to start the planning process. We will be able to start our community input during 2021. We will be off and running. It's been a long time getting here. So I think on timelines, then you're able to get the plan done during 2021 and start to move this thing forward during the 2021 year.
What's the estimated cost of the planner?
That will be part of the negotiation over the coming month, Commissioner. We will be sitting down with them, going over their fees, going over projected hours, and we will see where we come out the other side and be back to you next month.
Okay, so we vote again once you negotiate.
That's correct.
And we'll have the ability to, we could potentially say no if we don't like the negotiation process, which will then send it back out to another bid or another negotiation with them.
I believe we can go to, I don't think we're going to have to rebid. We could go to another proposer on that list. Harold, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, the answer to the commissioner's question is yes, you can say no. The last paragraph of the resolution makes it very clear that the purpose here is to designate somebody with whom we will have final negotiations. If when it comes back the commissioners don't like the result of the final negotiations, they'd have the option to either force more negotiations or require that we go to a different candidate.
Got it.
All right, anything else?
All right, any further questions or discussion? Okay, so we will hold off on the vote until the public has had a chance to speak. If you have to head out, Councilwoman Falco and Mr. Villamar, thank you so much for just everything you did in this process. It was a long process, but I think a very fruitful one. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mello. I wish you all luck and look forward to continuing this. Have a great night.
Wonderful. You too.
Thank you all for having me. Is there another link so that I'm not visual and I can just hear? It's on the, if I leave the meeting.
There are some phone numbers up on our website link if you want.
Okay.
Vanessa, or you could just turn
Mark,
off.
Mark, I can't hear you.
You could just, yeah, there's some phone numbers there on our webpage, so you could call in, or
call in,
or you could just turn off your video and,
okay,
and listen to us and mute yourself.
Or Mr. Director, Lords may be able to remove Councilwoman Falco as a panelist and keep her as a participant.
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing.
Yep. Right.
And Mr. Chair, just for procedural sake, my recommendation is that you entertain a motion to table the vote until later in the meeting.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table the vote until later in the agenda as item 5 on the resolutions list. Do I have a second?
Second. Erica.
All right. If I could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt? D. Mello?
Yes.
Seitzman?
Yes.
L. Smith?
Yes.
L. Vega?
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to the public comment period. Do we have anybody waiting to speak?
Barbara Reyes is allowed to speak.
Okay. And then I have a question from Adrian Rollins, which I'll read after Commissioner Reyes has a chance to speak.
Oh, how's everyone? First of all, I just want to say that speaking on what you guys were just speaking about, the Vision 2020, I was here back then, and it is no secret that I was a big advocate for Vision 2020. I do believe that we needed more housing stock in the Housing Authority. I did believe that we needed change in the Housing Authority. I think there was some misspoken information given here tonight. At that point, I was part of the Resident Advisory Board. I did get plans that were given out. There were educational meetings. There were community assessment done. So there was a large amount of things that were done for Vision 2020. I think the fact that there was also a political scrap, if you want to call it, between the administration and the director at the time was what did not allow it to move forward. But I am absolutely all for obviously making it better for the residents of the Housing Authority. But again, I just feel like a lot tonight was misspoken, and there is a lot more information that was not relayed. I can gather my information that I have from back then and provide it to some of you guys if you are willing to have it for the next
Absolutely.
week. I'm glad to do that. But again, that's just my point as a resident of the Housing Authority for so long and having lived through that portion. I'm glad that this is happening. I also do believe that before we do invest in making this better and doing everything, there are so many other things that have to take place in this housing authority. The gang violence is incredible down here now. The drugs and everything else. I think we have to start working on those things before we can invest in putting all and rebuilding and making more stock, more building stocks. Again, that's my opinion. So basically, I wanted to talk about that as a resident of the Housing Authority. On my other hat as a supervisor, I just wanted to let everyone know and give you guys a few updates that we are now open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Hoboken Housing Authority. We did put barriers in the computer lab, and our advocates are available to help all residents from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are not letting them sit in there for long periods of time, but anything that they need, we are available. They will be provided with a mask if they don't have one, and temperatures will be taken prior to them walking into the building to use the facility. So that's the policy that we have in place. I wanted to let you guys know that. I know that we're starting our creative wellness classes over at Fox Hills. We are starting it. We were supposed to start it this week. Unfortunately, we're going to start next week with that class. And we are working with the director on a few events for the children of the Housing Authority within the next few months. I'm pretty sure Danny and the director will give you guys more details about that. So that's basically it. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Barbara, this is Harold Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
In particular, if you have anything with respect to the efforts of Vision 2020, I'd very much like to see them, because I can only work with what I've seen, and that's what I was commenting on. If there were additional materials that you could make available, I'd love to have you email them to me.
I absolutely, again, this has been so many years. I was part of the resident advisory board. I have files on everything that was done during that period of time. I will definitely go through all my information, what I was given, what was provided to the residents, the information that was given, and I'll be more than glad to send it as a group email to everyone so that everyone's on the same page.
That would be wonderful.
All right, thank you so much.
Wonderful,
Thank you.
Barbara.
All right, do we have anybody else waiting to speak live? Because if not, I could read Ms. Rawlings' question.
There's no one else, Dave.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Rawlings sent a Q&A into the chat feature saying, when will the cashier's office be open again? Your cashier is much better protected than I am at my job, as she is in a closed office. Hug. So that's the comment.
Mr. Chair, I'll point out that Ms. Rawlings also made 2 comments in the chat function. Because there's not an overwhelming number of comments in there, my recommendation is that you read them into the record as well. Okay.
All right, again, I am reading her comments. I'm saying, sorry, but when residents suggest things, we are 99.9% of the time ignored and told it can't be done. And then Ms. Rawlings' next text at 7:34, how far away is the project really from even getting started? All right. Okay.
And then just for the record's sake, Mr. Chair, maybe Lords could help us on this one. Were there any emails sent?
There are no emails.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So motion to close the public portion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All right. Can we have a vote, please?
H. Foreman,
Yep.
Dan Postato,
Yes.
Dave Lewitt, Aaron, did you say?
Yes.
Yep, yep. E. Mello,
Yes.
E. Seitzman,
Yes.
L. Smith,
Yes.
L. Vega.
Yes.
All right, next you have the report of the executive director and secretary, including reports on prior unresolved issues and questions from residents raised at the prior meeting. Director.
So I will try to speak loudly and succinctly for Phyllis's use. If you do have a problem, Phyllis, I can always try my earbuds again with the microphone on there, but we'll try it this way first. I would tonight like to introduce the new maintenance director, Mohan Joshi, who is on the line with us. Welcome, Mohan. We are glad to have you aboard. Mohan's been with us for just a couple of weeks now. He's getting his feet on the ground with us. He's already out there helping on a number of issues. So we are glad Mohan's with us. Mohan has extensive experience in contracting. He's got extensive experience in maintenance. He knows our systems well. He knows systems well. He's learning our systems. We are just so glad you came aboard. We're glad to have you, Mohan.
Thank you very much for my introduction and nice seeing everybody. I'm having my feet on the ground and then very soon I'll be very, very active. I assure you that.
He's already out there in the evening, so welcome on. I'm sure.
Thank you.
I'm sure we're looking forward to a long relationship.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We continue to meet with staff 3 times a week to go over issues as they come in. I did meet with the Resident Advisory Board on October 30th. The Resident Advisory Board continues to meet to talk about issues, recommend changes, recommend things that we can do better. I updated the group on current projects, revitalization efforts. We talked in depth about a lot of what we talked about here tonight with our Resident Advisory Board. We talked about COVID procedures and what we're up to there. That group is preparing for a new round of elections. It's a 3-year term that they serve. So we're going to be doing elections in the near future out at our developments once more. We do believe a number of folks are going to be interested in those positions. That's a great group that meets monthly with myself and Daniel and the staff. By the way, Mohan was there on this round as well. He came on for the Resident Advisory Board, so we're glad to have him on board there. The next small sentence I have in our report really represents a number of concerns from now and addressing comments that were made this month and last month, particularly by Ms. Reyes. We are working hard with the police department on almost a daily basis, virtually a daily basis. We have some issues out there right now. We have security issues. We have issues with, if you will, some gang activity. There is currently a couple families that are having a major dispute that have led earlier in the month to some major disruptions and to possibly some gunfire. So we are working hard at those issues. The police have essentially doubled their presence here over the past month. I've met with the Hoboken Police Department a number of times over the past month. They've been keeping me informed and they have been on site. The problems aren't going to be resolved overnight, unfortunately. We have some bad actors that we've identified that we're working hard at dealing with, but it's a scary problem. I think that might lead a little bit into kind of our limited security committee meeting that we had this month. And possibly Commissioner Smith might want to say a thing or two about, you know, what we talked about there and how we want to have a security committee and again in the very near future. I think we had a very productive talk the other night, Commissioner Smith. I don't know if you want to say a thing or two about what we talked about.
Well, there's not much to say that you haven't already said. Thanks again, Director. Yeah, it's a big concern with the activity that's been going on lately. Like Director Recco said, there's been identified as particular actors, and it's not, like you said, it's not something you solve overnight. These are issues that have existed in the community for as long as I've lived there, and so they're not issues again that are solved overnight, and there's no silver bullet. Actually, a lot of what we do is dealing with the symptoms of some of these issues, and we really need to start talking about how to get to the root cause and how to really address the problem so that it's not an ongoing generational issue.
Commissioner, one of the things you said the other night really has stuck with me, that if you can get that gun out of somebody's hands early and put something else into those hands, something productive, that's the goal. And start early and get a good activity for the kids. I think we really need to be ramping up our youth programs as much as possible to provide a good future. We talked.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Director. I think there's a misperception that people want to be gang members, that people want to play with guns, that people want to be drug dealers, and I think there's nothing further from the truth. I think it's a lack of opportunity, and a lot of that is what plays into, again, the generational issues that we have in our housing authority.
Thank you. We have discussed, I've discussed with a number of residents as well, the concept of closing off the Harrison Courtyard. We do have some engineering to do on that, and we're taking a look at the idea of making the Harrison Courtyard accessible only to residents. I believe I've heard that was true a number of years ago, but with a security booth. And we're looking at ways we might be able to do that. That Harrison Courtyard just invites folks in, and I believe it should be closed. So we're going to be taking a look at that over the next couple of months. We've had some talks in the past. We talked about a gun program. By the way, Commissioner Seitzman, I have brought that over to the police as well. About an anti-gun movement, about how we might go out there and promote that. They are looking at other cities and what other towns have done, and we'll be talking about that with my next meeting with the police. So we're constantly talking, we're constantly identifying, seeing where the issues are, and meeting with the police regularly. So it's a tough issue. We've got some problems, but we will keep in touch on it. Anything else on that? Our community rooms regarding COVID have remained closed. The food pantry is continuing, as you'll see in Daniel's report of their food distribution. We thank all the service providers and everyone that's been out there making this happen. Our resident advisory board also, in talking about COVID and the concerns that residents have, are strongly recommending that we take that safety first precaution. We talked at length about COVID at our resident advisory board meeting, and I do commit to continuing as much COVID safety as we possibly can going into the months. We are not over yet. They're actually talking about a rebound out there. We want to make sure we're safe, keeping our staff safe. We have had meetings with staff as well on procedures, so we're working well with staff. We have waived rent late fees again for the coming month, and I expect that will continue until such time as the economy is back on its feet and COVID is behind us. We are adjusting rent levels via telephone and doing rent collection via our Dropbox system and sending out receipts. We are, though, open on all of our offices for appointments. Our offices are covered during the days. We have made a new plan starting this past week with all of our offices to be covered from 8 to 4. You can call into any of our offices, including our central office. If you want a particular appointment with somebody, we will make an appointment. What we don't want to encourage are lines, are people waiting outside. When we collected rent here with our cashier in the past, we would have 10 or 15 people lined up and maybe 5 or 8 people in our small lobby. And we just aren't going to allow that to happen. I'm not going to allow that to happen. But on the other hand, should anyone want a specific appointment, a specific service, we are glad to comply with that at any of our offices. I have had a number of meetings here in my office, for example, that we've kept good social distancing. We've kept some good spacing with plexiglass between us. So we've been able to stay safe while we've had those meetings. So I welcome anyone that wants to have a meeting with management to contact us. We're actively meeting on Zoom. Matter of fact, we had a couple of Zoom meetings with residents this past week that worked out very, very well. And we communicated very, very well through that process. So we're adapting to the pandemic, trying to stay safe, and I think staying safe. I think we continue to have a very good record at the Hoboken Housing Authority for our residents and for our staff, and we want to continue that. We did do a report as best we could for items distribution that was asked for at the last board meeting. Daniel, you want to talk a little bit about our distribution numbers that were requested at the last meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Reckel. Yes, so in our first batch of distribution, we purchased about 10,000 masks, and we distributed close to 8,000 of them. So each resident received close to 6 to 7 masks. I'm sorry, per unit, not resident, but per unit. We usually hold back about 2,000 masks for staff use, as well as any additional residents that may swing by and say, hey, I just ran out of masks, or I wasn't there. Can you please provide me? So we keep those for just those in case situation. In our second batch, we distributed close to 7,500 masks, of course, keeping back or holding back about 2,500. And that's also for staff use. In addition to large families that we have, and sometimes they do come back for additional masks, which we also are happy to provide for them as well. When it comes to the sanitizers, right, and the wipes, each unit received 1 sanitizer and 1 pack of wipes. Of course, we always hold back. I think in sanitizers, we probably held back maybe like 800. But that's also for large families that continually will ask our team, do you guys have any extra sanitizers or wipes as well? In addition to, of course, our staff who require or request, sanitizers, wipes, and masks for their use as well. So that is pretty much the way that we went about distributing these masks. I want to also add that every time I will walk or go to see a unit or visit a unit, a resident to distribute these items, it was sad because people say, there's 5 people in the house or 6, do you have any more masks? And we will have to say, I'm sorry, that's it. Now, nonetheless, we will always come back after our initial first distribution and say, hey, look, we have, some additional masks, for your kids or so. So hopefully, for November, I would like to recommend November and December. These are holidays, families may be visiting. Maybe we can do another round for all of our families. And I think that's going to add to the safety as well. Thank you, Director.
If I could just jump in, I have a couple questions. So we've only given out, ahead, please. We've only given out 1 bottle of sanitizer to each unit.
So we did 1 bottle per unit, but some residents, depending on family size, we will come back to them and we will give them maybe 2 or 3. Because sometimes we have some pretty large families here. We have, some units that 5 family members, 6 families, so it's not enough. You can buy 2,000 and it's still not enough for all of our.
Yeah, families. I thought we bought $5,600 worth, right? And then we bought another $5,600 worth. So wasn't there $10,000 worth of hand sanitizer?
That I can't tell you the number. I can just tell you, the number of sanitizer bottles that we had, but I cannot tell you exactly the amount of the cost of the items that were purchased.
Okay, because my calculation, we had about 3,500 bottles of hand sanitizer.
Don't remember that number, but I can always.
Can we get a number? Because it's concerning that if only one bottle went to every single unit.
Well, remember, one bottle was in the initial distribution, but we always hold some bottles back for our staff and also for additional families, large families that will come back and say, hey, Danny, can we get an extra sanitizer bottle? So we will provide it for them as well. So some families will receive maybe 2, maybe 3, but that will be like, the initial request or the second request, additional request that they will make, to the housing authority.
So of this $89,000 that's on the COVID-19 expense summary that says cleaning, disinfectants, and resident supplies, what amount of that is hand sanitizer and wipes?
That question, sir, I cannot answer.
I know. I'm talking to Everett, Mark or Emil.
Yeah, I think we'd have to break that out. Emil, you wouldn't happen to have that at your fingertips, would you?
No, I'm sorry. I don't have exactly how much was spent on. So you're looking for just for hand sanitizers and wipes?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we asked that the last meeting. I wanted to see a breakdown of the COVID-19, what was spent on masks, what was spent on hand sanitizer, and all that. But because something's not adding up here.
Well, I think we have to remember too, as much as we will take a look and continue to take a look, as these supplies came in at the beginning of COVID, we stocked our offices. People were walking into our offices. People were coming in. Our staff was coming in. Our residents were coming in. We were passing them out in the lobbies. We were making sure that anyone who requested a sanitizer, that they got them. We didn't necessarily have everyone sign a receipt for every single sanitizer that went out. And we will certainly take a look at the numbers, Commissioner, but at the same time, I am positive that none went to folks that didn't need them. None were taken any place off of Housing Authority property. I think Daniel and his crew and our management crew were very reactive to residents who needed hand sanitizers, that to take any stock we had to make sure it was given to residents. When somebody would walk into the Monroe lobby, we need an extra bottle, boom, that bottle was there for them. Again, we didn't necessarily have them sign a receipt, but we made sure that everyone, particularly in those early months, as we were getting supplies in, we were making sure they went out to our residents and to our staff. People were using copious quantities at that point, I think even more than now, but not to say that we won't go back and break that out. And I apologize on the cleaning.
Yeah, and if you could please add also the amount of hand sanitizer that was given through the efforts of the Hoboken shelter. They made donations to our residents as well that included specifically to our seniors hand sanitizers. So that's even more hand sanitizer. It should have been out there.
Sure, they did, and there were times when they would deliver, and we would not necessarily know, but they would put one into the food delivery bag. So there were some groups that came in. I think that they would come in on a Saturday, do a quick one, and we don't necessarily have every one of those captured. We can certainly try our best to go back to the calendar, but we did not keep a running count of every charity group, every nonprofit group that came in. And Daniel, is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, we will have an organization that would say, hey, we would like to come in and donate some groceries, and then they would include, we will hear from the residents, oh, there was a bottle of sanitizer in there. But these things were pretty small. I mean, these were not like these huge, bottles that we're giving. So these things go pretty fast. Also, the city, I believe the city also came in, and during their meal distribution, during the initial months of the pandemic, they also provided, I think it was maybe one small bottle of sanitizer for, these residents. some of the seniors, especially in the senior buildings. But sometimes you might have like one individual living in a unit, and maybe one sanitizer may be enough. But when you have sometimes two members living and then you only get one sanitizer, it's definitely not enough for them. Plus, this is something that's used throughout the day. I mean, I go through hand sanitizers. Wow, I probably go through a bottle and a half, maybe more, every couple of days.
Wow, it's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. If you can get that information, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Seitzman?
Yes, I just want to say that we should be, thank you, Commissioner Emposado, for bringing up the costs, because it's very important to know where the money is spent. But I also have to say thank you, because I hear horror stories out of other authorities that many more people were hospitalized, sick, and did not do as well as we did. So we do have to be very cost cautious moving forward, but we should also be very proud of ourselves for what we have done and how we have kept our residents safe.
Yeah, and I would like, on that, thank you. And on that, I would like to just remind everyone that at that point, about 3 to 4 months in, that the health department with Hoboken actually reached out to us and said, whatever you guys are doing, keep it up. Because our record was very, very good at that point. Not that we didn't have pain and suffering, but I think we impressed a lot of folks. And some of that was just the great community that came out, and ourselves that came out and made sure everyone that wanted something got something. Thank you, Erica. We did send out we did talk about housing for Hoboken today. We did send out, I did send out a report on our vacancy issues that I'll be glad to, I think maybe we could certainly go over in subcommittee as well, but I think it shows them, I think it gets to what the board wanted on where our issues are on relocation units, transfer units, and units that are in the process of being renovated. I am intending this month to go out for a contract. If you remember, we did 49 units under a contract over the past year. We do intend to go out with another contract to have a contractor come in and deal with our worst units. We also have Local 55 working on that units, but I think we're making real progress on those issues. We've got quite a few transfers going on, and things are going on well there. So,
Mark, can you just tell us of the white sections that say awaiting repairs?
Yes.
What type of shape are those units in?
It depends. Some of them are in decent shape. Matter of fact, we asked the staff, Libya is getting ready to put her button on. Libya and Jackie are doing a new round on each of those units to see what units are in such terrible shape that we have to have a contractor in. And I think Libya, you and Jackie are ready to give a report on that over the next couple of days?
Yes, that's correct. Usually the units in the senior buildings are in better shape than the units that are in the family units. So we're gonna go around all those buildings and find out the condition of each unit. The ones that are in white, those are the ones that are not being touched yet, that they haven't been touched yet. And those are the ones that we're gonna be looking for or looking at.
And can you break down the total for us when you get a chance? I guess I could count them, but like, what color has the largest amount of units?
I believe we still have the ones that we haven't worked on, the white ones. We have more non-touched than the ones that are completed. I can give you a count.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and I think in the future report, I'd like to use this as a model.
Yeah.
And I think if you want that added to future reports, I think that would work.
Yeah, if you can go through like you did with the 90% and 100% with the white units to see like, is it 10% ready? Is it 80% ready? Just to give us a better idea of our housing stock and what shape those are in.
We sure
Okay,
can.
that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Special capital projects continue. We're really moving forward with the Housing and Finance Agency jobs. The roofs are essentially complete with some punch list items, yay. Our exterior tuck pointing work is going on at Monroe Gardens. Thank you, Monroe Gardens residents, for dealing with that beeping crane that's been out there working on the chimney. The first 3 buildings are in process, and the elevators looking to be done in December, and then be able to move on to phase 2. We have turned one of the 2 elevators at Adams Gardens over to the contractor to renovate that. They expect to be done at the end of November. We have had issues with the remaining elevator at Adams. The maintenance, elevator maintenance company has been working ceaselessly on making sure we keep that elevator running. We did have an initial issue when we first turned over one of the elevators. The remaining elevator failed for a couple days. We gave the residents every service we possibly could while that elevator was down. It's been running well since then, with one exception, that we had a few-hour turnoff. So we've made a lot of progress there on making sure that elevator runs. But we cannot wait for that first renovated elevator at Adams to be in place, so we're not on pins and needles all the time about only having one elevator at Adams. So we thank you to the Adams residents who are dealing with that. But the project's moving forward well. The RAD project, we've talked about that tonight. The boiler replacement contract is complete, and we're working on some additional camera upgrades that will be funded through CDBG. We have worked, I've been meeting with the police department on coordinating where the staff and the police department believe that we need some new cameras and better coverage, and we're working now to get those to get that up and running. The gate upgrades at Fox Hill that you approved last time are at HUD for approval, and the Adams Sewer project is nearing completion. All that has to be done there are the replacement of the tiles in the lobby, and we'll have that lobby back in shape at Adams for the future. That's a great project. I do have a draft ACOP revision in front of you. We can talk about when it comes up. I do want to say that the HUD office is really wishing that we expedite that process. We published the RFP for project-based housing back on September 17th, and they're due back to us on October 13th. We did have a pre-job meeting on that, and we had a couple folks attend, so we think we're going to get at least a couple proposals in on our project-based voucher project. We do anticipate opening the Housing Choice Voucher waiting list soon, and we do have a resolution in front of you tonight to change the admin plan to allow us to utilize a lottery for that process. Our admin plan in Section 8 did not specifically say that we could use a lottery process for taking applications. And I think the fairest way to do it, particularly in light of COVID-19, and I think this is the way most folks are doing it. If you took a look at the 770 project that the city did, other folks that are doing applications now, they're taking applications online and in paper, then they're holding a lottery. And that's the road I want to go down as we open up the Section 8 waiting list for the first time in years. I have authorized a study to be done on the brick facade over at Monroe. We're seeing some deterioration on the brick facade over by the windows on the rear side of the building. So we are having the contractor take a look and report back to us along with our consulting engineer to see what we have to do to address that. I don't think I want that going another year before we address that. We have had a major project this month over at Christopher Columbus Gardens. We are going to be starting soon some excavation over there. We had a camera scope go down into the sewer system at Columbus, and we found out that one of the main lines going out to the street was on a reverse flow. So it was flowing back into our building. We don't know how long that situation's been there, but we have had some continuing problems at CCG over time with a lot of routing and a lot of pressure cleaning of that line. So we did a study. We found out that a major repair may well fix that. So we're looking to do that this month. We spent extensive time with the boilers, and in the boiler rooms, Mr. Joshi's been very involved with that, cleaning up the boiler rooms. We do expect that as we go along this next week, we'll have all of our boilers up and running, getting ready for this winter season. The 2019 audit is almost complete and should be before you next month. Remember, I just said 2019 audit. This is an audit that's been delayed by COVID. So we are actually experiencing now an audit that goes back a year in time. So we are finishing up with the auditors now. They are doing their office work. They were in our offices this past week. We should have that audit for you coming next month. Last but not least, on resident services, Daniel included his resident services snapshot. So Daniel, if you want to give us a quick update on that, we can move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Recco. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things in the resident services snapshot for this month. I want to thank Westside Women for organizing a food distribution event with a nonprofit organization called Hunger Free for the main campus. Thank you so much for their amazing support. Ms. Sandra Smith spearheaded that event and that program, so we're really happy that they were able to connect with that organization and provide additional food support to our community. I also want to thank Hoboken Grace for an amazing volunteer event. They came and painted our railings, painted the water park fences. Really thankful for that. I got an email back of a small group that wants to come back and continue some of the work that they were unable to finish on that day. So I'm really excited to schedule them and bring them back to the Housing Authority so that they can continue to beautify our property. So thank you, Hoboken Grace, for their annual event, and also those volunteers for serving our community and beautifying our property. The Hoboken Food Pantry, of course, continue to serve our community with their food distribution. It's a bi-monthly program. They were doing door-to-door distribution to all of our senior buildings. Unfortunately, they had canceled that program now in terms of the door-to-door distribution, but they will continue general distribution and pickup at the 311 Harrison Street courtyard. So they were on today. The event went pretty well, and they're coming back on the 22nd. Now the 22nd is going to be an evening distribution from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And they hope to continue this throughout the fall and the winter. We'll continue to have conversations with them as to how to best hold this program or this event moving forward, especially when it starts getting cold. So really thankful to the food pantry for their amazing service. One more thing, I want to thank Hopes for their amazing support during this pandemic. We continue to work with them and strategize and find new ways to serve the senior community as well as our kids. We continue to work with them and try to figure out, how do we do all of these programmings and still keep our elderly safe. And I think we have been able to figure it out. They will be starting their creative wellness program, as Barbara Reyes mentioned, and that's going to be next week, and that's going to be at the Foxhill location. If it is very successful, then we might be able to move it to the other communities, Adams and Monroe. So I really want to thank Hopes for their amazing programming, service, and support, and for working with the Housing Authority in keeping our seniors and families safe. Thank you so much, Mr. Recco. Thank you.
Daniel, how did our tree and plantings do after their first full summer on Monroe Street?
It was beautiful. It looked great. Bobby kept it up. unfortunately, there were people stealing the roses. Yeah. So we need to figure something out. Maybe for the spring, we probably may need to put a fence around it. I mean, it was looking great, but you know, when you have some beautiful flowers and beautiful roses coming up, then yeah. No, nothing more said, but yeah, it was great. It was looking great until, you know, some of the stuff was being taken. But
well, my daughter and her troop members are in high school now, so I'm not sure if they're going to continue. But I got a younger daughter, so maybe we'll galvanize her group to
yeah.
Years.
Maybe in the spring and see what we can do. But it was looking great, and I really appreciate their efforts. It was looking amazing. We just have to figure out a way to keep it from anyone coming in and actually vandalizing.
Pilfering the roses. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
you
you
very much, Daniel. That's the end of my report.
Okay, great. All right. So I don't think we have any reports of committees that go beyond all the work we were doing in finalizing the Housing for Hoboken bids. Am I missing anything? Is there any committee reports that need to be shared out?
I would just, for the Resident Services Committee, the one comment, we asked Director Recco just to supply us with a recap, either weekly or monthly, of the relocations that occur and the transfers that occur via the voucher program to those that take it, those buildings that take it, like applied. So we're just, Mark is going to go ahead and run those reports each week and keep us updated as we get some of these units occupied and rented out, and get people relocated out of their units that are just in total disarray and into units that are inhabitable to our standards. So I appreciate Mark and his staff for doing that.
And thank you to Lourdes for that. I don't know if she's still on.
Thank you. Thank you, Lourdes. Great. All right. Any other reports from committees? All right. I don't believe we have any unfinished business, so I'll move on to the reading and approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. So Resolution 2020-10.01, a resolution to approve the minutes for the September 10th, 2020 monthly board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comment? We could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman,
Yes.
A. Impastato,
Yes.
A. Lewitt,
Yes.
D. Mello,
Yes.
E. Seitzman,
Yes.
L. Smith,
Yes.
L. Vega.
Yes.
All right, bills and communications, resolution 2020-10.02. Resolution authorizing the payment of the monthly list of bills for the Hoboken Housing Authority. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Anybody have any questions or concerns?
One question I have.
Yes, Commissioner Impastato.
The final payment to Carmelo Garcia, is that it says final, but are there attorneys that are owed money, or are we now, after that payment of $50,000, are we now putting that in the past and that is over with?
We are now putting in the past, that's over with. Emil, anything else hidden there?
No, that is it. That was the final payment. All attorneys had been paid.
Thanks. And then second, I don't think I see any expenses for COVID related in this month. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. No products COVID related were purchased this month.
Okay. And on the sheet for the COVID-19 stuff, it says balance total cost through 9/15/6/17, and then there's a balance of 500, but then it says total 1.1. Can you just go through that and let us know where we're at?
Yeah, so that sheet this month is an actual. through 9/15. The total funding we were awarded for COVID was $1,118,000, and through 9/15 we spent 617,587 of that. So that is the balance. We drew that money down in order to from HUD to help our 9/30 year-ended fiscal year. And so now we've got an additional $500,000 to spend by the end of the calendar year.
So because I could have swore that a couple months ago we were going to be running over the amount. So now we have 500,000 to spend.
So that what was previously provided was a budget. I can reforecast and provide a new budget, but this is $500,000 remains to be spent for COVID-related items. That is correct.
Okay, so we over budgeted by 500,000.
No, there's 3 more months.
There's 5 more there. Yeah, so we're gonna have probably items through October, November, December. Yeah, so another 4 months. Excuse me.
Okay, can you do a new budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
So next month we'll have a new budget projection out to you.
Thank you. And you're probably guessing that it's going to be it's going to look better than it was, right?
I think we're going to be at a break-even point.
Thanks. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right. If we could have a vote, please. Are there any other questions or comments first? All right. If we could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman? Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt?
Yes.
D. Mello?
Yes.
E. Seitzman?
Yes.
L. Smith?
Yes.
L. Vega?
Yes.
All right. Resolution 2020-10.03, a resolution to ratify the September 16th, 2020 award of an emergency contract for chimney and roof at 540 Marshall Drive. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Second. All right. Any questions or concerns? Director, if you could give us a little color as to exactly what had to be done.
Sure. We had a lightning strike that, that hit our chimney and completely demolished it. In turn, the bricks came down and damaged the roof, which was a new roof. So we contacted the insurance company, had the insurance evaluation done, figured out what they would do for us, and then we needed to move. So I declared an emergency and went ahead because of the roof damage. We probably could have waited if there was a bit on just the chimney, but I didn't want to wait because of the roof damage.
Okay. Do we have anything on those chimneys that would attract lightning unnecessarily?
I don't think there's anything necessarily. We've had a couple good storms this summer.
Okay.
One of those nasty storms.
All right, good enough. All right, any further questions or comment? Can I have a vote, please?
H. Foreman?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
D. Lewitt?
Yes.
D. Mello?
Yes.
E. Seitzman?
Yes.
L. Smith?
Yes.
L. Vega?
Yes.
Our resolution 2020-10.04, resolution to approve the write-offs of tenants' accounts receivable. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Oh, second.
All right. Any questions or comment?
Second.
Yeah. What can you explain this one?
Sure. Essentially, these are people that, individuals that have moved out.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I know what this is.
Oh, it's money. Yeah.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Do they go into collections?
Yes.
All right. Any further questions or comment? If I could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt?
Yes.
D. Mello,
Yes.
E. Seitzman,
Yes.
L. Smith,
Yes.
L. Vega.
Yes.
All right, resolution 2020-10.05, a resolution to award a contract for professional planning services with respect to the RAD program.
So this is the resolution, Mr. Chair, where the discussion has already taken place. So you may want to ask for a motion to reintroduce it for the purposes of a vote.
All right, so could I have a motion for
Can I-
reintroduction?
Can I say one thing real quick? Is that allowed?
Let's have the motion for reintroduction first, and then
Okay.
do I have a motion for reintroduction?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Can we have a vote, please?
H. Foreman,
Yes.
Sam Passato,
Yes.
yeah. A. Lewitt. I think Aaron's frozen.
I think he's frozen.
I think he is too. I'll proceed and we'll circle back. D. Mello,
Yes.
E. Seitzman,
Yes.
L. Smith,
Yes.
L. Vega.
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Impastato.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment that, while I was on the call here, I just did a simple Google search for Vision 2020, and it was pretty astounding the amount of information that I found online. So I just wanted to clarify to Barbara Ray's point that there was extensive planning that took place. This wasn't just like a swing for the fences plan that involved no vision or planning or PowerPoint presentations or any type of process in place. This wasn't just like pie in the sky, hey, let's rebuild the buildings and have no way of doing it. There's a ton of stuff online. There's PowerPoints. They even, our attorney said that there was no plans that he could find. They won an award for the plan that was presented. They actually won an award from the state of New Jersey for a exciting and well-planned and thought out process to redo our building stock. So to the notion that there was nothing going on or no planning is completely wrong. I do agree with Commissioner Mello that there was no probably plan to pay for it. And what is different now, like you had mentioned, is our nonprofit, but also is the federal programming that the RAD has introduced, that the government has introduced in the form of RAD, that now allows us to go and get that private funding. So I just wanted to clarify that so everyone understands. And second point, there was mention that like we had to go and get these architectural plans and renderings from Marchetto, and like that was like applauded. They're online. I just emailed them out. There's a full PowerPoint presentation of all the plans. It's on Marchetto's website. So I just wanted to make sure that those 2 points were made. Notwithstanding the amount of work that this group has put together, and I personally really appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure that those 2 things were what was started 10 years ago was a good plan and had some merit to it. And I don't want that to go by. Whatever your thoughts are on how it was done or who the leadership was should be irregardless. The fact is that they had enough courageous thought process to get it started, to get the ball rolling. And that should be applauded. No matter the fact if they couldn't financially put it together, no matter the fact if the mayor wasn't on board or the political destructiveness of this city, which always takes negative impact, irregardless of all that, there still was an aggressive idea that 10 years later, we are now in a better place. And now with the opportunity of this funding and this ability, along with our board, along with the nonprofit board, are in a good spot, along with a great director that's going to see this through. And we're all on the same page, which is great.
Wasn't
Thank you.
there, I just have something to say, because there was funding, and I believe Mayor Zimmer voted it down. I think it was about 35 million or something.
That's not how I recall it. Listen, it was, you know, I don't know if it's productive to kind of argue the merits or detriments of Vision 2020. I mean, there was 231% increase in density. That alone, I think, to do without having a declaration of an area in need of redevelopment first, I think is grossly out of order and inappropriate. You know, I was on the city council when we didn't, as a city, didn't want New Jersey Transit to just plan whatever they wanted on their property without going through a redevelopment process in the city of Hoboken. And I would say that about any major landowner, including our housing authority. So that's probably the biggest issue I had with it. I think there was issues with just architectural aspects of it that I didn't quite agree with, and a lot of different aspects. There were aspects like bringing in the street grid of Hoboken to our properties, which I think were wonderful. There were things that I didn't think were wonderful, and you know, there was a lot of issues I had with that plan, including the original plan and the plan that has been talked about again has the spillover building, which you need if you're going to level any housing because you don't want to displace people. You needed an initial building built for the spillover. That was going to be built in the initial plan on a parking lot right next to our senior building, where there would have been a building built like right on top of our senior building's southern exposure, right across from the condo school. And I, at the time, wanted that moved to the property, the parking lot directly across the street from the mailboxes. And if we went back to that original plan, that effort and that decision would be destroyed, and we would go back to placing the overflow building on the senior parking lot on our building on Monroe and Jackson, which I don't think is an appropriate place for it. So there was a lot of issues with it, and you could write a book about those days and everything that went on, and the different opinions and the different concerns. There was a concern I had meeting with the developer who was going to build the initial building about lists and whether the displaced residents would be guaranteed admission into the new building. And I did not like the responses I received to my questions in regards to that. I will not stand for anybody being displaced ever from our housing authority. And I had concerns about that. Now, they were concerns, and maybe they could have been alleviated, but they weren't. And, you know, that was the reason why, as a councilman at the time, I voted against things moving forward because of those concerns. So again, I don't think it's productive to spend too much time looking backward. I think this planning firm that we're recommending is excellent. I think they've been more than willing to look back at the work that Dean Marchetto did at the time and not, you know, have redundancies and not repeat themselves. And I think that's great. And Commissioner Lewitt has done a great job of asking people questions during the whole interview process. So I'm not concerned about that being wasted.
Yeah, can we just agree that there was a plan though? That if Harold wants to chime in, can we just come to? I just want to.
Yeah, there was a plan, and I think legally that there's a concern when there's too much of a plan before you've designated an area in need of redevelopment. But that's just my opinion on having dealt with a few of those areas. That's my opinion. I think there's legally a problem when you plan too much before you've had a redevelopment designation.
Yeah, Commissioner Pistaro, I will chime in. What I was talking about was the plan that would be presented to the city for its review and consideration by the city council, the city administration, and the city planning board. As Commissioner Mello said, ultimately that will be necessary for us to get any funding or move forward with any specific project. And that, I believe, is going to require a lot of input and work with those other groups. I made that comment in the context of who stakeholders might be. The material that I've seen, and I'm certainly open to looking at anything additional, I certainly will look at what you emailed, reflects what I've already seen. I saw the award. All of that, in my mind, is preliminary to actually having a redevelopment plan. And when I use the term plan, I mean a redevelopment plan prepared by a professional planner, which is the RFP we did, not just a vision for how things would go forward. To me, that's the difference between what was done before and what we need to do now.
Okay. All right. So the junior Mr. Fitzpatrick, I believe we basically had our discussion before, so we can go right to the vote on this, correct?
Correct.
All right. So if I could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman.
Yes.
Sam Passato.
Yes.
A. Lewis. Did Aaron drop off? Looks like
He's not currently with us, Mr. Director.
Martis, could you give him a call and maybe we could even get him on by phone? But we do have enough commissioners to pass it, but maybe give Aaron a call if you would, Lourdes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. D. Mello.
Yes.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
L. Smith.
Yes.
L. Vega.
Yes.
He's back.
Right.
Brian, yes.
Yes.
I would have been very upset if you didn't get to cast a vote on that, Aaron. So I'm glad you're back with us.
My screen blanked out on me.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay, so on to resolution number 2020-10.06, a resolution to award a contract for roof replacement at Harrison Gardens. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion. Oh.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or concerns? If I could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman.
Yes.
Sam Passato.
Yes.
A. Lewis.
Yes.
D. Mello.
Yes.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
L. Smith.
Yes.
L. Vega.
Yes.
All right, resolution 2020-10.07, a resolution to introduce a proposed admission and continued occupancy policy. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And I'll second that. Do we have any questions or concerns?
I would like to say, as an introduction to this, this gives us an opportunity to take a draft that the staff has worked on very hard for the past year, to put it out for review and comment to all of us.
Yes.
We will be having a 45-day comment period on this, during which time we will be bringing it certainly to the Resident Advisory Board. We'll be putting it up on our website. We'll be distributing copies to anyone who would like one for review and comment. We will also be bringing it to subcommittee to take a look at it, to work out any details that need to be worked out, any comments and changes. The process does include a special board meeting. There needs to be a hearing on the revised ACOP. We would expect that we'll be calling a special board meeting toward the end of November or the beginning of December to have an official hearing on the ACOP, to get comments, to get reactions from the public. This is something we've needed to do for quite a while. I think the last ACOP, I should have looked at it before we got on, but I think it's well over 10 years old. It needs to be updated across the board, new regulations from HUD, new ways we've got to do business that allows us to take a look at this. And we will be talking to all of you and bringing this to subcommittee, bringing it to resident organization meetings, resident leader organization meetings to go through it in detail. We did bring on a national consultant to work on this with us, along with our great work from Ms. Libya and her staff and my input as well. We think we've got a good starting document. It's a document that can certainly be tweaked and changed as we go through the review process. I will add in closing that it is a requirement by HUD, and HUD has been kind of on my case, on my back about getting this through and making this process happen. So this is also something we need to do for HUD compliance, for our compliance for the coming year as well. So we needed to kickstart this process. So we'll be talking to you all about it quite a bit over the next 45 days. You will see it come up on our website. You will see me asking for some subcommittee meeting on this. I think the ACOP committee as well as services to take a look at this. So it affects how we operate from beginning to end, and we'll all have an opportunity to have our input into this document before it's over.
Do we have one of these in place right now?
Yes, we do.
So what is the biggest thing that's different in this new one?
I think it's a million little things, Commissioner. It's how HUD regulations have changed over the last 10 years, 15 years actually. The HUD will put out a regulation. This board has changed some things over time to amend that policy. They are in fits and starts. This puts everything together into one new document. It really is all those little regulations that come down, all those little things we do on a day-to-day basis. For example, on the Section 8 side, we want permission to go for a lottery. In this side, we should have that permission built in. There's just a bunch of little things as we come through.
Got it. Look forward to reading through it.
Yeah, and we'll get through it with you. And I think we'll have some guided review of it as well, so we can really dig into, how we do business here and make sure we're doing it right, making sure we're doing it fair and in compliance with HUD regulation.
Okay. Does anybody else need the floor for any questions or concerns? You can have a vote, please.
H. Foreman?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt? Lose there to get D. D. Mello?
Yes.
E. Seitzman?
Yes.
L. Smith?
Yes.
L. Vega?
Yes.
I think the issue with Commissioner Lewitt might just be a mute issue, Director.
Oh.
I think he's stealing the Wi-Fi from his neighbors,
Yes.
and it keeps coming out.
Okay, yes, thanks.
Thank you, Aaron.
I think you're right, Andrew.
If I could comment for a second on schedule, I would contemplate, if you go forward with the public hearing, as Mr. Recco said, we would have the public hearing, which has to technically be a special meeting of the board for just the purpose of receiving comment on this document, either the 30th of November or the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd of December. And one thing the commissioners may want to do is look at their schedules and let Mr. Recco know about that. We can set the actual date when we have our November meeting, because that will be before that, and we will set the special meeting date. And then the intention is that if everything goes as planned, after the 45-day period, after the opportunity for the review at a public hearing, if anybody has comments, at the December 10th meeting, you would finalize this plan by adoption.
Thank you, Harold.
Okay. All right, so next is resolution 2020-10.08, a resolution to authorize the issuance and sale of one series of a housing revenue bond, rental assistance demonstration project for Foxhill Gardens, series 2020, in a principal amount not to exceed $2,500, and authorizing and approving the executive and delivery of agreements and related instruments and determining other matters in connection therewith.
Just to be clear, Mr. Chair.
Should read.
that should, there's a,
There are 3 zeros missing, Mr. Chair. It should be $2,500,000.
I thought that if you detected my pause when I read it. All right, so do we have to amend the resolution, or is it just because I'm reading from the agenda, the resolution?
The body of the resolution is accurate.
The body of the resolution.
It hasn't been introduced yet, so it will just reflect it in the final version.
So in a principal amount not to exceed $2,500,000 and authorizing
I'm
and
sorry.
approving.
What did you say? Because
Let me reread it. Let me start from scratch. Okay. Resolution 2020-10.08, a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of one series of a housing revenue bond rental assistance demonstration project, Fox Hill Gardens, Series 2020, in a principal amount not to exceed $2,500,000, and authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of agreements and related instruments and determining other matters in connection therewith. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns other than the drastic difference in the 2 amounts I quoted?
I would like Harold to give us a review.
Yeah, I don't know what this is.
Well, this is a repeat performance on a resolution that you saw at the last meeting as part of the Fox Hill RAD project.
Okay.
You'll recall that when we discussed this at the last meeting, the problem was that we were still having significant trouble with getting the bank to give us a commitment for this loan. We've already taken it to the finance board. NW Financial worked on all the financial terms. We solicited this bank as part of an overall RFP process. We took this transaction based upon the bank's original preliminary commitment to the local finance board this summer and got it approved. And the bank has been very slow because of the fact that it was originally SB1 Bank and is now merged with Provident Bank to actually produce the commitment. And the last meeting, although it was on the agenda, I recommended that the resolution be pulled because we really didn't have anything from the bank that we could rely upon. Well, now we got a commitment from the bank, and I've been going back and forth negotiating its terms. And as of 6:30 tonight, I finally got the response from the bank, and that included some terms that I still have a concern about. I talked to the attorneys at HUD. I think there may be some provisions that HUD will not accept, and we told the bank that, and we're still in negotiation, but we're very close. So based upon my consultation today with the executive director, it's my recommendation that we adopt this resolution and move forward with the understanding that if we don't get these terms straightened out with the bank, we're not going to complete the circle. And part of the completion of the circle is that when you approved the pay list tonight, you approved a payment to the bank as its initial funding of that commitment, which I assume Emil will cut a check on eventually, but we're not going to give that to the bank until we're sure we have a deal. And at the point that we have that payment made, it ultimately will get funded out of the transaction. The bank actually was looking for more than double the 22.8 that you approved, but NW, Lisa Petrosky, and I negotiated that down from more than 50,000 to this 22.8. And if there's an issue with respect to this commitment, we're not going to deliver that check, and we're going to have to consider alternatives. If, on the other hand, we can work out the terms, then we want to move forward and not wait another 5 weeks. I will tell you, based upon my discussion with the HUD attorney today, I think we're already at the point that since HUD has a limitation on when they're prepared to close once you get up near Thanksgiving and all the way to the beginning of the year, it's probable now that we're going to have to tell HUD we need an extension until sometime, at least in January, to close this transaction. But if we don't adopt this resolution tonight, it will be delayed even more.
Is this NW gets 10% of the cost? I mean, the total amount?
If it were, we'd all go in that business there, Andrew. It's 1%. Yes, it is a percentage, and it's 1. Yes.
Right. Now, why? So why are you negotiating? Isn't that what they're for? Do I have that backwards?
Well, they're very involved too, but I'll tell you that very early in this stage, the bank punted a bunch of the issues to their lawyer, and once they gave it to their lawyer, then I had to get involved.
Okay, so we're paying them the 1% to do this work, and then are we getting billed for the amount of work that you're putting into it?
Oh, absolutely, and I think you're probably getting billed. You have to ask Emil to be sure on an hourly basis by NW for their work too.
I don't understand. That's where I don't understand is why you're involved. I don't get why we're paying NW a lot of money from the beginning. And the way it was explained to me when I made a huge deal about the 1% is that they are crucial in the process. They know the banks, they have the relationships. This is what was told to us. And that's why they earned that 1%. Because that's additional money that we need to pay back. That money that we pay NW, it comes out of that amount. So,
it will come out of the funding of the $2.5 million. That is correct.
Yeah. So I don't. This is where I'm confused. I don't understand that. Why can't they handle the amount of work that's needed here with their fantastic relationships with the banks?
Well, I can't speak to the part about the relationship with the bank, but I can tell you that in a transaction like this, a lot of it is lawyer to lawyer. And as I say, they brought their lawyers in fairly quickly. And I've been negotiating with the lawyers.
So how much more money have we spent in addition to the 1% for the hourly rate for NW now that this is being dragged out?
I don't think we have that at our fingertips today, but we can certainly get it for you. I think a good analogy here might be that, you know, when you buy a house and you have a real estate broker that represents you, you still better have an attorney taking a look at the papers. And I think, you know, we as a housing authority, we certainly bring on the financial folks that can run the numbers, know the finances, know the long-term way to get the loan, know how to make all of that work, do that intensive work with the RAD physical assessment, what needs to be submitted to HUD on that upfront stuff, make sure that all works. But we also need an attorney that will protect the housing authority through this, particularly when you get to the level of HUD making sure that things go well, and they bring in their attorneys. That is something that a financial advisor on these just does not do.
Yeah, I hear that. I respect that, but there were other companies that we could have went with that were not entitled to that 1% fee. And what was explained to me was that we needed to go with this company because of their relationships with the banks and to get this deal done. They had the best ability to get this deal done. And now it does not look like that. So we could have originally saved ourselves a lot of money by not going with NW, where our attorney was going to do all the work anyway.
I strongly disagree with that statement.
Well, you usually do.
You've been through this before, and there was also a lot of 95% of the work, in my quick estimation, had already been done. So I personally, I mean, I'm not going to speak for the whole board, but I don't think it's in the best interest of this board to get a reputation of having advisors do that much legwork.
Yeah, that's a whole nother
contract out from under them so that somebody else can get a commission. That's
right. Well, that's a whole nother debate. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? If we could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
No.
A. Lewitt?
Yes.
D. Mello?
Yes.
D. Seitzman?
Yes.
L. Smith?
Yes.
L. Vega?
Yes.
And just to reiterate, your adoption of this resolution doesn't lock us into the bank as they produce their commitment. It's going to be contingent upon Mr. Recco's final approval of the final version of the commitment based upon the advice that he gets from me and NW as to whether or not the terms are acceptable. And I already have a written request into HUD that I gave them, the attorney, tonight, asking him to confirm my position on certain of these terms that wouldn't be acceptable to HUD and need to be changed.
Okay. Resolution 2020-10.09, a resolution to amend its Housing Choice Voucher Program, HCVP, administration plan to allow for the use of a lottery system for the admission to its HCVP waiting list. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Director, if you could add a little color to this, please, for us.
Sure. I mentioned this during my executive director's report. The admin plan for the Housing Choice Voucher Program doesn't give us the ability to hold a lottery for the acceptance of applications to the Housing Choice Voucher Program, commonly known as the Section 8 program. We need to open up the waiting list. We haven't opened up the waiting list. Libby, do you know how long it's been since the waiting list has been open? But it's been
since 2004, last time we opened up the waiting list.
What did you say, Libby?
2004 was last time we opened up the waiting list for Section 8.
Thank you.
So we're getting to the point now where with the approval of the small area FMRs that it's time that we increased our waiting list. What I've done before and what's commonly done kind of elsewhere now, and particularly with COVID, is rather than just have a huge line of people trying to put in applications, what we will do is accept applications. We will then use a lottery system to choose those folks that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the list, rather than do a time and date when you get in the front door of the housing authority first. So this gives us the ability to do a lottery system to accept applications for our Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program.
I have some concerns about this resolution. I think my biggest concern is that when we have a lottery here in Hoboken, it seems like the politically connected people all seem to win the lottery. I don't understand why, if we haven't opened the list in 16 years, why there's such a rush to do it during this COVID pandemic, if the COVID pandemic is the concern that leads us to having a lottery. If it hasn't, it's been 16 years. I mean, I believe we have people on the list. We have a waiting list, correct? I mean, we have enough of a waiting list that we probably won't fill it for the next couple of years, correct?
No, incorrect. What's changed is that the program was fairly well stagnant for quite a while because the rents in Hoboken were higher than the amounts that we could offer through the voucher program. We have recently been able to increase those rents considerably. So we now have an increased interest in the voucher program. Okay? So we can now actually place people out in the community where we hadn't been able to do that for a number of years. Now, with this increased interest, we are whittling down our waiting list. Our waiting list in the Housing Choice Voucher Program is coming down right now because we're placing people. We're down to about 40, 50 people on that waiting list. So we need to open up that waiting list and get more people in so we can fully utilize all of our Section 8 funding, which we believe we can do now because we had increased rents.
How many people do we place a year?
Well, I think in the past we've only placed, so let me get help, but we've only placed a very limited amount.
Very limited amount of people a year, yes.
Because our rents haven't been high enough. No
right,
one
but a limited amount,
rent.
can you give me a number, a limited amount 30, a limited amount 5?
Limited amount, maybe 10.
Okay, so we're placing about 10 people a year, and we have about 50 people on the list. So again, I don't see the urgency to do it while we're still in the COVID pandemic, which leads us to having a lottery. Again, I just don't see the urgency, and again, I have my skepticism about lotteries. So again, I just don't understand. If we have 50 people on the list, we place about 10 a year, and even if we double that, we place 20, it'll still take us 2 years to whittle down that list. is there such an urgency to get people back onto that list? I question that.
And when's the last time that list was recertified? Do we contact those people every year?
Last time
we purged the Section 8 list, Dawn.
What?
When we purged the Section 8 list last, Libby?
It was in 2017. And just recently we did a call to everybody that is on the waiting list and asked them if they still want to be on the waiting list or if they wish it to be removed. A lot of people wanted to stay. And
what was the percentage of people on that list? Was there anybody that didn't need it, or I don't know, God forbid, passed away?
Some people passed away. Some other people told us that they don't need it no more, that families are not together no more, so they wouldn't need like a small bedroom size. They probably applied when everybody was in the house.
What was the number of those people?
We didn't have much people being removed, but we have some people that, like I say, passed away and now maybe need different vouchers. But it was a minimum.
Is that list supposed to be recertified every year? Aren't we supposed to go through that list every year and see exactly what's going on?
Well, I think what has happened with us again is that this program has been stagnant in Hoboken for so long. We have not been able to offer the types of rents that were available that would make units available for us. With the increased amount of rent we can offer, we expect to be going through this list pretty quickly with the remaining people. Our program is underutilized. We are not housing as many people as we could under the program. And I sincerely believe that we will be through this list and that it is time that we got more people on that list, because we don't want to run into a brick wall and then have to wait as some landlords are out there that have available units that are ready to rent to our folks. And we have to turn to them and say, you came in with a 3-bedroom. We don't have anybody on the list for a 3-bedroom. You came in with a 2-bedroom. We don't have it. We don't want to be in that situation. We want to have enough people on that list so we can get.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Director, but you said you expect to be through that list pretty quickly. How quickly?
Folks, I do need everybody to ask to be recognized so we have an orderly meeting, especially during Zoom, because people cut out.
Yeah, I think we could be through that list in a couple months. And then we don't, and then if we start this process over, it's going to be another couple months till we actually get the process.
So we'll be able to place 40 to 50 people in a couple months?
Well, depending on who comes in and how many units are available. It's hard to guess, Commissioner. We are going to keep pushing and keep making sure that we're getting as much assistance out there as possible. We don't know what landlords are going to come in the door where. I think we've had some issues now with some of our landlords where we haven't been able to get enough people to them, and they have come and asked us for more people, and there haven't been the right sized families on the list to meet their unit needs. We want to make sure that we have enough people that we can put out there, enough certificates that we can put out there that people are able to rent the units.
But you didn't answer my question. You said we'll be through this fairly quickly. We said we had 40 to 50 people on the list. I asked if you expect to place 40 to 50 families over the next couple months, and you say you don't know. So I'm kind of confused. You just said you expect to be through the list, but then when I asked if you're going to place the 40 to 50 people we have on the list over the next couple months, you say you don't know. I understand what you're saying. We don't know what apartments are going to come in, but then how can you be confident that we'll be through the list if you don't know?
Well, so if
One at a time, please. I would like this to be orderly. I'm going to call the vote. We're going to move on from this.
If I've got 40 people on the list and 10 of them need 1-bedrooms, but no one's coming in for 1-bedrooms, no landlords out there are offering 1-bedrooms, then those 10 people aren't going to find a unit to live. If I've got 5 people that need 3 bedrooms, but I have landlords with 10 units out there with 3 bedrooms, then those are going to go very quickly, where it depends on the size of units and the family match. when I say 40 people, it's just not go out there and find any unit you can find. You've got to match them up with family sizes. And what landlords are out there ready to rent to them. And if you don't have a good variety of people on that list, you often get stuck in a situation where you've got a voucher that you're not able, that the folks out there that are taking it aren't able to find matching unit sizes, and the voucher lays fallow. Am I getting through on that?
I completely understand what you're saying. I just don't understand the urgency and the idea to institute the lottery. It's beyond me that we have to do this at this point. Again, with the lottery, there always seems to be an issue with a lottery here, especially here in Hoboken. It seems all the politically connected people win the lottery. So I'm very hesitant to say that because of COVID and because of the urgency to fill the list that we need to do a lottery.
Well, what we're proposing to do is have a lottery that folks put in their applications. That lottery will be monitored. It will be a blind lottery. It will be monitored so that no one can have an advantage, that it gets chosen, through a random process. I think the other way, by the way, that when you have a system where individuals are chosen by the first person to put in their application, it depends on the first person that lines up at 2 in the morning outside the Housing Authority office. And I think that's an inherently unfair system. I actually, in my experience, have found that the lottery systems are very equitable as opposed to other systems because it is a blind system. And if it's monitored, then the folks with political connections just can't get through that blind lottery.
Who would be monitoring that process?
Gentlemen, please, ask to be recognized first. We need to have an orderly discussion, or else we're going to call the vote.
It's the same person talking. What's not orderly?
Exactly. I'm a little confused there, David, with the threats. I'm getting a little, confused that I'm having a conversation with the executive director, and it seems that you keep talking about who's going to speak next. I was the only person speaking, Dave.
There's other people that are talking in the background that is coming in. That's what it is.
Impastato just started speaking, so you're not the only one speaking. Commissioner Impastato has spoken as well.
Let me answer that question, if that's okay. There are 2 levels of that. One is clearly Housing Authority staff will be completely involved in the process. We are looking for, as part of this process, an independent entity to monitor the entire process. We are looking for, and I'd like your suggestions on this, whether it be, I've used the Human Relations Commission in the past. I haven't been able to find a good functioning Human Relations Commission here, whether it be the Human Relations Commission, whether it be legal aid, or some type of independent process, the NAACP. I am certainly open to suggestion to somebody coming in and monitoring this process with us. And actually, we built it into our procedure already to go out looking for an independent agency to come in and monitor that's not associated with the Housing Authority, not associated with the city, not associated with us at all, to monitor the entire process from beginning to end.
Very good.
Can I just say?
Yeah. Yes, please.
I think it's a good idea to hold the lottery, especially if it's a third-party vendor, because it is fair that way, Jason. The other way is not so fair. So it is a good idea to hold the lottery as long as it's a third party and not staff members picking. And also, I think it's a good idea to open the wait list, because it's true, you don't want to fall with nobody waiting on your 3-bedroom wait list and you have all these vouchers and then there's nothing to be given to anybody. It's sad out there these days and there's a lot of need for housing. So I would say lottery is the most fair. Happy Software is a good one that we used in the past, though.
And can I make one point, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
I don't know if it addresses any of the commissioner's concerns, but just to make it clear what's before you right now is a proposed change to the admin plan. However, historically, when the Housing Authority reopens a waiting list, whether it be the Section 8 waiting list or the public housing waiting list, since we have been involved, that involves a resolution of its own. So before the wait list would be opened, there would be a resolution before you. So you would have the ability, if you chose to review the procedures, then make sure you're comfortable with them. And then you'd have the ability to vote yes or no on the opening of the actual wait list. I don't know if that helps, but I thought it might be relevant information.
And you can cap how many you want to accept.
We will, and I would invite anyone here to also be monitoring this. I'll be glad to bring anyone here into the entire process. I've run these before.
Very good.
I just have one comment, if I can.
Yes, Commissioner Impastato.
Thank you. If we could just, as we move forward, if we do open the lottery and we get these lists and we expand these lists, can we make sure that we stay organized with them and recertify every year? So that when we get to this point next year or the year after, we have a very tight list that we know how many 1-bedroom units, how many 2, who passed away, who needs a 3 instead of a 1, so that it doesn't, lag on for years and then become disorganized. And I think by looking at the list that we have, both on the relocation, the transfers, and the voucher program, I don't think our lists are clean right now. So I know it's a lot. It's a big undertaking. But as we put more people in, if we can, as we move forward in these years to come, let's see if we can do it every year and recertify it every year.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. If we could have a vote, please.
H. Foreman,
Yes.
Ann Pistato,
Yes.
Dave Lewitt,
What was that?
A.
Yes.
Lewitt. I've lost
Yes.
track of it. There's Aaron.
Yes.
D. Mello,
Yes.
E. Seitzman,
Oh, yes.
L. Smith,
Yes.
L. Vega.
Yes.
Okay, there's no new business or a closed session necessary for tonight, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I just make one point very quickly, Mr. Chair?
Yes, of course.
Just to correct something that there might have been some confusion created previously in the discussion. With respect to the ACOP amendment, the date of the hearing has to be set and a notice published 45 days prior to the hearing. So the thinking, I believe, of the director was if a notice is published by next Friday, the 16th, then that would enable the meeting to happen sometime between November 30th and December 3rd, which would give the authority enough time to incorporate any comments or anything coming from the public hearing into a revision that would go before you for final approval on December 10th. So the date of the hearing, actually, if that schedule is to be used, the date of the hearing needs to be set probably by Monday for publication of a notice, if not tomorrow, for publication of a notice by Friday. So I just want to make that clear that that needs to be decided on now if that's the chosen schedule.
Can we, since we meet on Thursdays anyway, can we, is it too early or premature to have it on the Thursday following Thanksgiving weekend?
That would require earlier publication of the notice prior to next Friday. That would require publication by Monday or Tuesday, which I'm not sure is possible at this point.
All right, so how about 2 Thursdays after Thanksgiving? I don't have a calendar.
That would be Thursday the 3rd. That's one of the options on the table.
I mean, I would.
Can we agree on
The
Thursday?
3rd is the one Thursday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I apologize. Then I misspoke. The Thursday the 3rd is an acceptable date. Essentially, if you get the notice out by Friday the 16th of October, the dates are the 30th of November, December 1st, 2nd, or 3rd.
All right, so the Thursday is definitely, December 3rd is a Thursday?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say we should go with that just for consistency of night of meeting. Just can we take a straw poll? Can anybody raise their hand or otherwise note if that will be a problem that Thursday?
No, no problem.
All right.
And obviously, depending upon the circumstances, and you'll see if you look back that the resolution made reference to this, it could very well be possible that that needs to be a Zoom meeting in terms of all of your schedules.
Yeah. I assume we're going to continue to have Zoom meetings for quite some time, unfortunately. All right. So yeah, if we could put that in place. Do we have to take a vote on that for December 3rd?
No, no, you don't. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the timeline.
Okay. So last chance. Anybody think they're going to have a problem with that Thursday? Okay. All right. So let's set that up if we can. And then do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
All right. Good night. Let me see how I shut this off now. I'll leave. Very simple.
Goodbye, Lourdes.
Bye, Phyllis. See you, I guess, on the 3rd. Right?
Okay. The
Okay.
3rd of,
November. We're going to have a special meeting.
okay.
All right. I'll send you the info if anything.
All righty.
Good night, Mohan. This is still on. Shh, Leo.
Have fun with your dog, Lourdes.
Thanks, dear. Good night, hon.
Bye.